rules are there for great reason. And at the same time, I think that it is our jobs as practitioners to push the boundaries of those rules.
Hello, and welcome to Scholarship Station, your platform to explore the scholarship field. I'm your host, Erika Orsulak from Students First Consulting. And today we're talking with Natalie Grandison, the Director of Higher Education and Strategy at the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation. Natalie recently won NSPA's Anne Radcliffe Award for Individual Impact on the Scholarship Industry. She talks with us about building, sunsetting, and asking why. But first, Scholarship Station is a free service connecting members of the scholarship world to resources and ideas about how we can all better serve students. If you have a topic or particular issue you'd like to hear discussed, please let us know in the comments below. On screen, you'll see my contact info as well as all of our handles in all of the places. Hey, Natalie, it's so great to have you with us today.
Oh, hey, Erica. I'm excited to talk with you as well.
Good. Well, why don't we get started by, why don't you just tell us about yourself? I know a bit about you, but tell the audience about yourself and give us an intro to the foundation, the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation, including your role there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Natalie Grandison, I actually, before I joined the Clark Foundation, worked in higher education for over 10 years in mostly external relations and fundraising roles. A lot of interaction with students and figuring out, what were their pain points and hopes and dreams and different activities that they wanted to engage in on campus. And I was tapped back in 2018 to join the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation to lead what was then called their engineering initiatives portfolio. And over the course of my time at the foundation, I grew the portfolio into a $640 million grant-making portfolio that was focused mainly on scholarships, but over time, I grew into looking at what are the larger areas of access and affordability and student success that the foundation could invest its dollars in to make sure that higher education was a high quality experience for students, no matter what income level background they came from.
And Natalie, you've really created a program that is going to be such an important part of the foundation's legacy. Do you want to dive in a little bit more into the journey of that program over the time, including things like what made it possible for you to grow and scale it so successfully?
Yes, so the Clark Scholars Program, which is the signature scholarship program at the foundation, initially started with 10 institutions and now has grown to 11. And the focus of the program was to make sure that students from first generation, low income, and underrepresented backgrounds were able to access a STEM degree. And so there were some key components in the scholarship program that were there when I came in. So there was the academic rigor of the academic program, there was business required, as well as community service. And over time, what became very clear to myself and my colleagues was that scholarship dollars weren't enough to make sure that these students were able to graduate through college, right? To really have a high quality college experience, there were other elements that our resources could help incentivize and catalyze for these students to partake in. So over time, we grew the program to include additional resources for the students to be able to access. Originally, there wasn't an orientation or summer bridge requirement for our students, and we saw a very clear difference between the students who had sometimes even just 3 extra days on campus before the semester started to those who didn't. And so we decided to fund and pilot all of our institutions to add a summer bridge or a summer orientation program. And in those programs, what the program leaders on the campuses were doing were they were not only only just giving the students a physical lay of the land of the campuses, but they were always also giving them tips about here's what you can expect in your classroom. Here's what the workload will look like. Here are where the tutoring services are. Here is your financial aid person that you can have access to. And here is a group of 10 other students who have similar interests to you that you can lean on each other to ask questions. So that was one thing that grew. Another thing is oftentimes folks who come from very hardworking families who are working 40 hours a week, but living paycheck to paycheck, don't necessarily have disposable income to engage in the local area communities, which is such an important part of the college experience. So the foundation expanded its resources to help with the community building piece by providing students with access to funds to go out into the community and experience things like cooking classes or local community theater experiences. And though that may seem to be outside of the academic enterprise, what it does is it allows those students to build social bonds with one another, which will help them when they are in a time of crisis or need help with class to feel like they have friends that they can go to help. So that's another aspect that I think is particularly unique to our program. And then the third and last example that I will give is making sure that the program leaders are helping the students build their social capital and their personal confidence. So oftentimes we have first generation students who do not have other engineers or computer scientists that are in their families. And so they cannot ask their friend or family member to introduce them to somebody for an internship or introduce them to somebody for an informational interview to learn a little bit about what is it like to work at NASA. And so we created opportunities for our faculty partners who were on the campuses running those programs to pay for those experiences, taking students to different companies to expose them to what the different career paths were, providing students with funding during the summer to go to a faculty member and say, hey, I'm a freshman, I don't have that much experience, but I think what you're doing in your lab is cool. I would love to stay on campus this summer and work with you. Oftentimes students need to make money during the summer, so being able to give them a certain amount of money to go into that lab, the faculty members are very excited to have a young person that they don't have to pay for out of their research budget to come in and gain that experience. So those are just three things that I think have grown over time that really we heard from the students made a great impact in their experience outside the classroom.
I'm guessing that you have heard countless stories of students about the impact this is having on them. Are there any particular stories that stand out about ways that students have really been transformed by having that whole collection of resources and opportunities available to them?
So one student that comes to mind, he got into the institution that we partner with, but initially on a football scholarship. And he was very good at football. He got a football scholarship at a D1 institution, so clearly very talented, but his heart was not in football. He was only continuing to do it because that was the way that his family was going to be able to afford for him to get there. And before the semester started, he got the letter that, hey, if you're interested, you can be a part of this program. It will pay for your cost of attendance. It includes professional development. It includes resources for you to have unpaid internships with stipend support. And he was able to not join the football team. And every year when I saw him on campus, he had such amazing stories of the clubs that he was able to be a part of. He started his own small business while he was on campus. He was able to take advantage of the study abroad funding that we provided for him. And he did a co-op. So it was really just amazing to see how, because of a scholarship, he didn't have to limit himself on what he could participate in on campus.
What a great story. That's exciting that you witnessed that firsthand. And I'm guessing that there are just so many of those students out there who really, it expands their choice and their future opportunity. So it was wonderful to hear.
Another thing is exposure. There's another young woman that I remember who wasn't really familiar with what research was, right? She felt like you go to college, you get your degree, and then you go work for corporate America and make money and buy your house and right? And because our program required that students have exposure to research, She did a paid research opportunity on campus, and it completely changed what her career path is. She then went on to do research on campus at that lab for a number of years and is pursuing a PhD studying glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And she credits the program to just even exposing her to the fact that you could make a career out of doing research to better society and help people live healthier lives.
Thank you for joining us at Scholarship Station. If you find this episode useful, inspiring, helpful, or motivational, please subscribe, like, and maybe even leave us a review. We love having you with us. A lot of times we think we have to think a great deal outside the box to innovate or to come up with highly creative solutions, or that we have to come up with brand new programs or brand new initiatives. But you and the foundation, you've really found, invested in, sometimes even co-created with institutions, these innovations within what I think is a pretty rule-bound world of colleges and universities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the rules are there for great reason. And at the same time, I think that it is our jobs as practitioners to push the boundaries of those rules. Sometimes just asking why really leads to some pretty simple things. And I think that innovation has the connotation of creating a new gizmo or gadget or starting a company. But I think one of the things that I found to be innovative that my program partners and I really loved is, going into financial aid and being like, why was this student's scholarship dropped? Oh, well, the scholarship has a 3.5 minimum GPA requirement, and they had a 3.3, and so we pulled the scholarship. Okay, but why? Is that required? Can we change that? And it hadn't crossed their minds. So one of the things that we did is we wrote into our agreement, if we have a student that is below the quote unquote GPA minimum, but they are showing up to class, they are turning in their homework on time, let's figure out how to get them back up there instead of pulling out the funding from them, which then means probably that they'll have to find work, right? Which means less time to study and less time to focus on getting that GPA up. So the innovation there was going to the scholarship administration's office and having it written into the agreements that a student at the discretion of their advisor could maintain their scholarship if it was demonstrated that they were doing all the things that they needed to do to achieve a certain grade. That's not anything new, right? We didn't invent anything new, but it made a really big impact to our students. The other thing that I think has been super innovative is the way in which financial aid is done for our students, right? We have a fall semester, we have a spring semester. One of the things that the program leaders realized is that in the summer, they were still working with the students when they were at internships or on campuses. And they're like, okay, well, what if we created a course where there were some reflection questions throughout the summertime, and as a result of creating a 0 to 2 credit course, we can actually provide them with additional scholarship dollars in the summertime. It was a creative and innovative way of figuring out where are the other opportunities that students can be allocated additional aid. And I think that as an industry, we need to think about how we are able to apply our dollars at times in which are traditionally outside of the fall semester, spring semester dynamic that we're so used to operating in.
Natalie, the Clark Foundation is in the middle, or towards the end, really, of a, am I going to get this right? 1.4 billion? That's it, right? 1.4 billion?
1.4 billion, yes. Yeah. It's crazy.
Okay, great. The Clark Foundation is in the middle of, and really at the end of, a $1.4 billion spend down, and I've seen it described as an investment-minded, trust-based approach. Trust-based is always music to my ears. What does trust-based look like for the Clark Scholars Program?
Trust-based really starts with relationships and listening. I think that there are so many people who are motivated to make a difference and make an impact that oftentimes they come to the table already with a solution in mind, already with a way in which they think an organization should receive funds or should do something to do better. And for us, trust based meant leaving our assumptions behind and really walking in and saying, hey, we are going to make sure that the lights are on for the next 2-3 years. Let's talk about what's not working and why, and let's together figure out why that is and what we can do. Is it a resource thing? Is it a data sharing thing? Is it an influence thing? Is it a communications thing? Like, what are the reasons why something isn't happening? So for us, trust-based is really based in relationships. And part of that is things that most people know. Sharing your own experiences, letting people know what your intentions are, being transparent about what you can and cannot do, and thinking about ways in which you can bring student voice and program leaders' experience and firsthand what they're seeing happening on their campuses to the forefront.
So the foundation is taking this very intentional approach to sunsetting operations, which is quite different from how most scholarship providers work, with them instead creating endowments to last in perpetuity. What have you seen as the pros and cons of that sunsetting approach?
So I would say the pros are when you know you're sunsetting, there is a sense of urgency in making sure that you can find any issues and solve them as quickly and effectively as possible, right? We did not have 20 years to figure out if financial aid packages were going to be doing what students needed in order for them to graduate with little to no student debt. We had a year's worth of data. We were like, oh, look, the students have debt. Let's go figure out right now what that is and make the changes we need to make so that in the next year when they're packaging students, it doesn't happen that way. So that's definitely a benefit.
Where does that leave you? What's next for Natalie Grandison?
What is next for Natalie Grandison? I hope that I can end up in an organization or on a team that is really focused on not just direct services, but also looking at the wider ecosystem. So how can nonprofits, education organizations, universities, districts, governments work together to help advance entire communities? And so whether that looks like I'm at another foundation doing grant making, or perhaps working in a consulting capacity, helping get all of those key players around the table to figure out what those partnerships may be. I'm not really sure, but what I do know is that I am looking forward to continuing to ask why and figuring out the root causes of barriers and trying to just slowly chip away at them in partnership with other people who believe that with a little bit of creativity, a lot of persistence, that we can really force things to change.
Natalie, I'm so happy that you came on today. Thank you so much for joining me. It was so fun to have you and talk about the incredible work that you've done in your time with the foundation, and just loved having you.
Yeah, I love it. I've had such a great time talking with you. And, students first is exactly the lens that we should be doing our work. So it was such a pleasure, Erika. Thank you so much.
And thanks to everyone who joined us today. It's always a joy to have you on board. Please remember to like and subscribe to Scholarship Station. It's your platform to explore the world of scholarships. We'll see you again soon.